All right, welcome back to episode 8, episode 7.5, maybe, of this podcast. Doing the Belichuzz segment now. We talked about either doing them on two separate nights in the future, just so we don't dump all this on you guys at once, or just doing it quicker and putting Dynasty and Chopped in one video. But it's week one, and you're getting all this stuff because there is a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we start with very sad news tonight.
It's always tough seeing one of your friends get popped from Chop Huz League. No one wants to be the Huzless, and unfortunately, Nixon this week, no rose for you. We're sending you home from Survivor Island. It's been a
Yeah,
fun ride.
it's tough. This
I
really
believe,
touched me. I took the liberty
yeah,
to write a little eulogy about this. If you don't mind, if I could read that
of
just real
course.
quick. Um, O Will of Nashville, or possibly Brentwood, that day has come we all hoped never would. You have been chopped, cut off from the league, retired, gone, just like Jeff Teague. Though Sleeper won't let me see who you started. I'd guess it was Burrow. Ouch, that really smarted. And
Mm,
Kenneth and Amon Ra just wasn't their week. So you left without complaint, turned the other cheek. We'll
mm,
remember your joy and your sweet, kind spirit and honor your name whenever we hear it. So goodbye, Will Nixon, wherever you are. We'll see you next year. It's not all that far.
mm. It's really moving. It's really powerful stuff.
I really felt every word of that.
I know you wrote every
Unfortunately,
word for sure.
we do have to move on without him. There is a week two to play, but even as we go on to week two, if we could go ahead and go to the next, I believe we keep him up in the top left just as a reminder, and I cannot
Mm,
wait to add faces to this slide in the future, like a
mm.
gallery
That was
of the
fun.
departed souls. It could be my face next week. There's actually a really good chance it could be my face next week up there. We're doing the waiver report now. This was something everyone was really excited for. I was actually just real quick, I was talking to Tucker about this on the phone because a lot of it said the same thing that it says for Chitty here on Joe Burrow. Your roster will have too many players. Also reached out to
Mhm.
Chitty and haven't heard back yet. But Tucker said that he figured he wasn't going to get all these guys, so he was basically dropping the same guy in every transaction, so then they
Mm.
wouldn't go through. And so like Chitty, now he bid like $1,500, so I don't even know if he could have afforded Joe Burrow, but he bid the most. I'm assuming that's what happened is he tried to drop the same guy twice. But some big bids here, including one for you.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about JT here. I was surprised to have a Chitty 500 piece win it. That seems like an overpay, but T-Com at 369 as well. Like we mentioned, just are the Colts really for real? The injury concerns just makes me wonder, is he worth that much cash? But we'll see. I think it was, Chitty's still on the cusp, so he certainly needed that, but we'll see how that shakes out. It's also just interesting trying to figure out that, we've never done this before. How much is a player worth with our $1,000 worth of spend? So seeing also some low bids, for example, a $69 on Joe Burrow, which just wasn't even relevant to the discussion. It's just interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I
So
figured, I'm like, all I'm going to focus on is winning next week. So where are the holes in my team? I had the whole quarterback. So I said, let me get Joe Burrow. I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to do better. So I really went out for him. And JT, I liked. I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on. Yeah, I think picking up Burrow is going to be a huge addition for my team, and hopefully JT can keep Chitty off the chopping block.
yeah, I think this was an overpay. Like I said, I think he gets banged up a lot. I think, he's not going to be playing Miami every week. Okay, didn't want to hear what I had to say. Just kidding.
No, sorry.
So I felt like this kind of an overpay. I think there's going to be better running backs down the line. Obviously, I know you want to survive, but blowing
Mhm.
half your budget on Jonathan Taylor, I just don't think is super smart. I do want to say for me, these were two bids that I put in, just like, hey, what if on the off chance no one bids on these guys? I didn't expect this to hit. I have to wonder what Grant was thinking with $14 on Joe Burrow. Um, really don't feel like that was ever going to hit. I mean, obviously I bid a little lower, so I think it might be a slight, but like you have to think, Joe Burrow always gets better after the first few weeks. And if you can get solid quarterback play for the remainder of this league, I don't think a third of your budget is absolutely wild.
Right, certainly. Yeah, I mean, now I've got Joe Burrow and Jordan Love, where before I had Jordan Love and Bo Nix, and I think Certainly an improvement there, more consistent group. I'm fascinated, Grant. If you're listening to this, please put it in the comments. Just why 14? It wasn't 10, it wasn't 15. He was like, oh, someone might bid 13, so let me up at the 14 type. I'm just curious what the
Yeah,
thought process was there.
makes you think for sure.
Yeah.
Drake got a little bit active on this next slide here. I believe swooping in to snag Amon-Ra St. Brown. This was a real bid I put in, so clearly I underestimated how expensive this guy was going to be, and quite a bidding war. I believe the second most bids of anyone besides Joe Burrow for Amon-Ra here.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he didn't do great this week, but everyone thinks he's going to bounce back. He's one of those guys, just a great route runner, middle of the field, and catch a lot of balls. I feel is really solid. And, I of course went for him as well. Drake snagged him. I think 301's a solid price. I don't think that's an overpay. My question is, do the Lions bounce back next week?
A
How long does
little.
it take for Amon-Ra to really get going? Who's a dud week one? Like Austin said, part of that losing culture. He's going to carry over that. Is he going to kind of slow start the season and be back on the waiver wires next week? We'll see.
Yeah, a little worried about the Lions. But Drake, I believe, lost Xavier Worthy, so I think he needed this. Again, less than a third of your budget. I don't hate it. The Zay Flowers thing, so I guess Kyron was more, maybe we should be talking about him first, but I love this for Austin. This was one I think Tucker, wishes he would have gotten. I think he said it was Jaden Reed he was trying to drop multiple
Hmm.
times. I think, I don't think he's going to put up 28 every week, but he seems to kind of be the number one guy in Baltimore. And if he can put up solid flex numbers for you for a couple of weeks, I think a tenth of your budget is not unreasonable at all.
Yeah, I think that's a good value. Certainly, they're an upgrade, helping keep Austin well out of the chop zone. We were clowning him last week for being there, so I think he's just excited to be in the safe zone. Although you never know, all it takes is a couple duds, and you're right back on the chopping block.
Yeah, and you snagging Kyron, not a lot of bids for Kyron. I think Jonathan Taylor kind of stole most of the limelight there.
That's
But you have the
I
highest
think
projected points in the league this week, so it's worked
yeah.
out.
I mean, I got two of probably the four best guys that ended up on the waiver wire there, so that certainly helps out. I was surprised Kyron didn't have more of an audience. I think he's just a really solid red zone guy. Gets a lot of touchdowns, pass catcher, not the backfield. Um, Honestly, looking at the waiver now, I'm like, dang, I wish I'd only done like 103. I still would have won, but I was really shocked that I got him at 203, a fifth of my budget for one of the top eight running backs in fantasy. I think it's a really solid value.
Yeah, I think just because his first week performance wasn't crazy in terms of numbers, he had 13. People might have ignored it, but I was
Right.
looking, it said other Rams running backs that are not him got one carry. So he's clearly the guy. And he
He's the
also only
guy.
caught one pass. I think that's going to go up. He had 18 carries. He is a bell cow back. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I like the addition. Obviously, maybe you wish you'd bid a little less, but I don't think, 200 is terrible for a guy who is the guy in LA.
Right.
And then
So yeah, let's talk about
the
ATN.
last ones that are maybe there were others, but these were the last ones in that 2 a.m. wave on Nixon's team. Chitty goes over $1,000 to bid 300 on Travis Etienne. Now I like Etienne. This was a real bid from me. 300's absurd. Honestly, good for Chitty that he doesn't get him. I really like this move for Tucker. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the 121's maybe a touch steep. I mean, that means if we go back, Tucker bid 100 on Kyrie and 121 on ETN. I think that's interesting. But of course, he got ETN. Like you said, I think he did solid. This from past years, I've always kind of seen that ETN is just high risk running back. I don't really have a lot of faith in him, so we'll see if he can duplicate this performance against a non-Carolina Panthers defense. But really curious what Chiddy's thought process was. I'm not sure if he fully understood the concept of money, which is concerning considering he's an accountant, but really spending that like it grows on trees. Maybe he thought that's you get that every week. That's a possibility, but
Well, he still spent more than 1,000, so I don't
yeah,
understand. It's I think looking at the Kyron bid, I think maybe it is a touch expensive, but I think this is the type of flex play that could keep you around for a couple weeks. Again, I'm high on ETN. They traded Bigsby. Even if he's not, playing Carolina every week, I think he's going to be a solid flex running back for a while. A touch risky. I was on r/fantasy football recently, and I was looking at some Guillotine League tips and tricks, and they said, try and stay away from those risky guys, right? Like they named Jacoby Myers as really solid because he's not going to blow you away, but you're going to get double digits every week, and that's going to be
Right.
enough to keep you out of the chop zone. A little risky, but he seems to be Jacksonville's guy. I think he's going to slot nicely into the flex for Tucker. I really like the addition.
Yeah. Again, curious, Austin, why 17?
Hmm.
Like 17 exactly. And I love the Scott Davidson there with the $1, the hopes and dreams bid right there. So
Yeah, I think that's kind of funny because I remember once Stacey King of the Chicago Bulls said MJ and I combined for 70. You'll always remember that. He had one, MJ had 69. I believe Mr. Davidson had a $69 bid earlier, and now he rounds it out nicely with
mm,
the $1 bid on ETN. I love
it's
to
a
see
deep
that.
cut. It's a deep cut. I kind of like the Dak pickup. I think Dak did poor in week one. But the offense is going to have to score to stay in games. I think they have, with CD and Pickens, they have the options to do it. So I think that's a solid pickup. What do you
Yeah.
think on the Dak?
And I mean, looking at Dak too, like what everyone was saying, and I kind of watched the game. I'll admit I was at dinner, which I was kind of sad about because his first NFL game, but I was looking at it, and from what I saw, what people were saying, Dak played really well and just didn't throw the touchdowns. I know Jalen Carter went out, but he moved the ball well. He's going to be throwing it a ton. He has good weapons. I'm trying to look at Team Hurricane coming. Right now, he's got good quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Josh Allen. But I think you could make the case for Dak over any of those guys besides Josh Allen. He could
Yeah,
be the second quarterback, and for $10, I mean, steal.
right. I will say, again, Dak, he was some CD Lamb drops away from, 100 more passing yards, maybe an extra touchdown or two. So, yeah, I think he played really well. Let's look at his Harold Fanning grab again, the waiver wire king. They're getting him for $0. I think it's a solid pickup. I don't think it's going to move the needle or anything like that. But
Yeah.
Grant's he's already got Travis Kelsey, so this is probably going to be a flex guy. But it's a high upside grab. Cost him literally nothing, so I like that for
Yeah.
Grant.
I mean, I can't dislike it because it's $0. But kind of, I mean, kind of how I feel about both of these. If you look at Quentin Johnston too, like I just don't know that it's a guy you're going to put in. I mean, you said he had Travis Kelsey, his two flex guys, besides super flex, which I assume Harold Fannin is not his super flex, are Garrett Wilson and Debo Samuel. I don't think you're necessarily making that swap either. It just feels like the kind of high risk guy where you're like, ooh, Harold Fannin, and then he has 2 points because they're still in Njoku and the Browns are bad. So not a bad pick.
Right.
He spent $0. Fannin could end up being really good.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put him in this week, and I don't think he's a needle mover.
Yeah. But Zach Ertz wasn't going to play either, so it's
Right.
just regular
Yeah.
waiver wire
I
plays.
just think the
And
debate is this a positive move or a lateral move? I'd say lateral move.
yeah, it's kind of irrelevant. And then Quentin Johnson, I like dropping Bryce Young. I don't think he was going to do anything. Quentin Johnson's had a good week one. If he remembers how to catch the football and continues to remember that, I think he's going to be a potential playable guy. But again, Jitty's on the chopping block, and this may become irrelevant next week. He may be back on waivers. So
Yeah, this could be like Stephen A celebrating. Who cares what else? You lost Kwame Brown. They should throw a parade. You don't need Bryce Young on this team. He's
yeah,
probably out of the league in 3 years.
yeah,
I'm kind of not big on Quentin Johnston. Like he was a big waiver guy in redraft leagues. I'm not super high on him just because he has had the catching problems, and he's still the third receiver behind Keenan Allen, who I love, and Lad McConkey. So I just wonder if the targets are always going to be there and he's inconsistent as is. But
yeah,
it's a better option than Bryce Young. And yeah, I mean, if he can do what he did last week, even every other week, I think you've got a good guy.
yeah, certainly.
And
Wow.
then,
Let's just maybe speed through these.
yeah, so I woke up at 4 a.m. on accident. Maybe I was secretly excited about waivers and I was like, oh, let me check the waivers. I had Terry McLaurin. He's going to be a flex guy for me. So I'm happy I got him for $0 at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's really great. Daniel Jones pickup, maybe they discovered something in Indianapolis. This could be a great move for Austin. Jerome Ford, of course, wasn't going to be fantasy relevant. Not a huge needle mover, but not a bad, not a bad play either.
Yeah. The Chitty one is really interesting just because George Kittle is out. So he basically is decided, like Mark Andrews, I imagine, is going to start for him. And otherwise, it would have been
Yeah,
Evan Ingram. So this move will have an impact, especially because Chitty is close to the chopping block.
yeah, I can't wait for Evan Ingram put up receptions, 125 yards and two touchdowns. How about
That would
looking
be
at T.
fun.
Crom? Again, drop into one of those guys that's just a bad vibe for the locker room. To get rid of him, Kenneth Walker, I don't think is going to really making the impact for T-Crom. But he is, oh, and he's close to the chopping block. So we'll see. He's not playing Kenneth. So, this is just an interesting moving forward.
Yeah, I still like Kenneth Walker just for $0. I mean, he's been a great running back in this league. The Charbonnet
Yeah.
situation scares me if you have him in redraft, but adding him for $0 over Tua, sure, why not?
Yeah. And then Hollywood Brown with the injuries to wide receivers, Xavier Worthy going out, looking like he could be a top dog. Caleb Johnson didn't really do anything for Pittsburgh. Again, Drake's very, very much in the safe zone, and he's not playing Hollywood Brown. So just kind of a thing to keep your eye on, so to speak.
Yeah, he does have Xavier Worthy, so that's nice. He can kind of just replace him.
Yeah. So let's look at
All
our
right,
chop
so
prediction.
the final thing here, our chop prediction. This is very, very exciting. I am the one in the chop zone right now. I did not add anyone besides Terry McLaurin, who was free. I really thought about picking myself. I'm probably my own second pick, but ultimately I went with a guy who is currently in the danger zone. Um, I don't know, if I want to go through it because then it's already revealed. You can go ahead and reveal mine if you want. Not a very exciting team name. I picked Team T Cromwell, which would be sad, right? No one wants to see Tucker go out. Next week's in memoriam will be very sad. But
Mm,
some of the matchups just scare me. I don't love that he has Jake Ferguson at tight end and he has no backup tight ends. I think Cleveland is pretty solid. It just feels like Lamar could I don't know if he's doing what he did against the Bills next week. Ginty, the Chargers have looked pretty good. Just looking at this thing, like there's a lot of guys that have somewhat difficult matchups. He also doesn't have a QB2. That's my main thing. Like Cleveland matchup, I think is kind of tough, whatever. Um, but he doesn't have a QB2. He has Jacoby Myers in there, which is fine. But Brock
mm.
Purdy's out. And for a guy in the danger zone, I think you need a second quarterback. So I'm going with Tucker.
Yeah, so I'm also grabbed someone from the danger zone, skipped over here. Just felt grabbing the guy in the top zone feels too obvious. So the guy I went with, again, a couple of tough matchups, and I'm just worried. Some of these guys already had duds last week, and maybe in a season-long outlook they have some value, but I'm worried, can they bounce back next week? And that's going to be Boone and Kittle. I'm looking at guys like Tyreek Hill, had a horrible week last week. Is he going to kind of be more of the same? Mark Andrews, Patrick Mahomes going against the Eagles. That was a tough matchup for the offensive line last year. Could be again this year. Brees Hall against the Buffalo Bills. Likely they'll fall behind and have to kind of abandon that run game a little bit, which hurts his value. And again, I've never been a big Devontae Smith fan, so I could see Kittle having or Goon and Kittle here having a very underperforming week. It's sort of, like we saw with Nixon, where it's like JJ McCarthy has to throw 4 interceptions for him not to get chopped before Monday Night Football. So,
Yeah, I'm worried about Tyler too. I didn't pick him, but he's in the danger zone. I think that Mark Andrews edition is going to be hugely relevant one way or the other. It's just,
mhm,
I don't know. I'm curious what Chitty's logic is there. Like he had one catch last week in one of the most offensive games of the year where they had 40 points. So like, is he going to
mhm,
do better against Cleveland? I'm sure he will because he can't do much worse. But what about that performance inspires confidence over Evan Ingram?
right.
For a guy in the danger zone, that could make or break him. He could look like a genius this time next week. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, just looking at those teams, maybe just talk a little bit further. Who are the waiver wire guys that you're looking at there? If I'm looking at Chitty, I'm only really think like I guess JT will be back on the block and Jamar could be interesting, but outside of that, I wouldn't see myself putting money on much else that he's got on that squad.
I mean, let's be real though. Jamar would be the higher than any bid this week. Sure. I mean,
Right. He would go for a lot.
maybe not just because people are lower on money, but he's a better asset than Jonathan Taylor, even
Yeah.
with his down week one.
Yeah. I can't see, is there a good way to see how much waiver money each team has? Because like I'm down to like 400,
Yeah, if you're
450 or
on
something.
mobile, if you go to League, it's right there. It says waiver to
Okay.
the right with
Yeah, I've seen
money.
that. So that's going to be another
And
interesting thing. People like you or, Grant, people who didn't spend any money, are they like, oh, shoot, I need to kind of get ahead of this thing. I need to grab someone. Could we see Jamar Chase going, if Chitty loses, could we see Jamar Chase going for like 600, 700? This sort of like, it's Jamar Chase. He's often the 1-1 in redraft league. Teams that got the money saying, you know what, I'm getting this guy. I'm changing my team.
yeah, I'm worried for Chitty just because you have $420 left, but you're also projected the most points this week. So at least you use that. Chitty has $500 left, second least, and he's still in the danger zone. So I'm just kind of like, was
It's
it
actually
worth it?
remarkable. That's so
I don't
funny.
know. It's interesting.
Um,
And like we say, I'm in the chop zone. Didn't add anyone. Wish I had bid higher, so we'll see what happens. Should be fascinating. This is I want to apologize real quick. I thought this league was a joke at first. When he said we were actually going to have a draft, I was kind of like, ugh, I don't want to do a draft. I apologize, TJ. You're a genius. This is awesome. This might be like my favorite fantasy league now. It's been a great time, and you deserve all the flowers that you've received for this masterful creation.
Yeah, it's certainly nice that there's only one loser, and so it's like I just gotta cross this threshold, I'm fine. That's certainly fun. Um,
Yeah. Well,
so
we have
yeah,
been doing the
I'm ready.
mousetrap for like
Thank
an
you.
hour. So this has been great. Yeah, again, this might be shorter in weeks to come. We'll experiment, see what we can do with that, or do Dynasty in this on two different nights. But if
Yeah.
you watched both episodes of this, you are a mousetrap legend and a real one, and we appreciate you.
All right. Well, see you next time.
Thanks for watching.